Welcome to another 4-Minute Friday. This is where I take a few minutes out to answer some of the questions that you've been asking in the comments section beneath all of the videos right here on the Catch Fishing channel. We've got 3 topics to cover tonight. One of them is a quick look at what type of groundbait mixers we're going to be using through winter. Another one is a problem that I know that quite a few people have had in the past as regards matching line diameter to the actual hooks that they're using. And the final question is one of the things that can be the cause of what you think you are missing out on when you're actually fishing at long range. The first question up tonight is from Dave, and he's really starting to look at his winter campaign. I've already seen on some Facebook posts, certainly for certain match organisers and fisheries, where they are now taking bookings and taking a look at their winter campaign, and quite rightly lots of people are looking at the types of mixers and the types of approaches and the type of tackle they may be needing to be using going through the colder months of the year. And when it comes to ground baits, it's quite simple really, in the sense that when we start looking at ground baits for fishing in winter, we tend to look at ground bait mixers that have got much less feed in them. Generally, certainly on still waters, the water clarity will go clearer as well as the colour drops out. So when you start looking at the groundbait choices for your winter campaign, the first thing is have a quick look at the food value, make sure that the mix is nice and fine. The next one is to just tend to go down a darker coloured mix route, and really you can't go far wrong by sticking to those basics. And one of the key guides is if the groundbait has got the name on their F1, then that generally means that that mix could probably be suited for winter fishing. Stephen has had a problem with using thicker lines when he's using smaller hooks. Now there might be occasions where you might be fishing with small baits or targeting fish with smaller mouths. However, those fish are hard fighting fish, so you really need to match a small hook with a thicker diameter line. Now one of the problems that you could have with certain hook patterns is that because you're using a thicker diameter line, if you're tying your hooks on via a hook tire for example, then you might find that the diameter of the line is too thick for the actual spade actually on the hook, and that will just cause the hook to pull off. It means the thicker diameter line can't grip the spade of the hook enough to hold it in place, and that can be a problem on certain hook patterns. So if that's something that you're having problems with, have a look at the hook pattern that you're using. There are hook patterns out there across different brands that have got larger spades on them. If that's the case, then that means a larger spade can hold more of the wraps of a thicker diameter line. And if that is still a problem for you, don't forget that you can use eyed hooks. Quite often lots of people just get into the routine of tying their hooks on normally with a hook tire. However, you know, if you're going to be using a thicker diameter line, one of the strongest ways of attaching that to a hook is via an eyed hook. And there are 2 ways of doing that. You can either tie your line direct to the eye itself, just like you would do normally. However, just the fact that it's got an eye on it will mean that that eye will be bigger than most spade ends that are available on hook patterns. So you could still use your Matchman or your hook tire or whatever hook tire that you use. You can still use that to tie your line to the shank of the hook, just like you would do on a normal spade hook. However, you have got the added security of having an eye there, which will be enough to hold on that thicker gauge line. Ken has had a problem saying that he's missing bites when he's fishing at long range for skimmers and bream. And one of the issues that he's mentioned is that quite often he hasn't seen any sort of a bite, and when he's reeled in, the bait hasn't been on. There hasn't been any bait there, and that's been happening multiple times on certain occasions. Now one of the things that I did speak to Ken about, one of the things that we have highlighted, is that most of the fishing that he's doing at range is with red worms as hook bait. Now this is something that I heard about many years ago, but it wasn't something that I actually had a problem with until a few years ago. And basically what can be a very common occurrence is that when you're punching a feeder at long range or into a headwind, if you've got soft baits on like red worms, quite often they can simply be ripping off the hook on the cast. You know, it's not uncommon for people to suffer this problem, and they've had a look on the grass behind them and there are lots of dead red worms behind them, because the sheer power and the force of you punching that feeder out there can be enough to rip off those soft, supple red worms. Okay, so if that's the issue, then obviously redworms aren't suitable for that sort of fishing. There are obviously the obvious solution to that is don't fish with redworms on a hook. Fish with pieces of dendrobina that's chopped or something like that, or use a completely different hook bait altogether. Or one little hack is something that I started doing a few years ago, and that is because I keep a batch of dendrobina worms at home, kind of breeding, but it's more about keeping them alive. If you keep them alive for several weeks, you will find that they will breed as long as you feed them. If they breed, that means you've then got the option of very, very small dendrobina worms that literally can be, depending on what size you use them and what age you use them at, can be the same size as a redworm. However, a dendrobina worm is much, much tougher. So that means that you can still fish with little worms that are really, really tough, that hopefully are going to be strong enough to stay on the hook to withstand that powerful cast. And the final topic tonight is something I've been getting asked about for 3 or 4 years now, and the answer to those that have asked about official channel merchandise: yes, the store is live. I'll put a link directly underneath this video for you, but the website address is on screen for you now. There are caps there are mugs on there, and there is also a small range of clothing which I'm going to be adding to that. So if you are a fan of the channel, if you've been wondering about the channel merchandise, the worldwide store is there now. You can order products from there no matter where you are in the world, and they are shipped to you automatically, so you don't have to rely on me being at home to get them to you. So thank you to everybody who supported the channel with the new channel merchandise. Well, thank you for some great questions. If you'd like to have any of your fishing related questions featured in these future 4-minute Friday videos, please post your questions below, and hopefully you've got a little bit of value out of this video, and ultimately we're really hoping that it's going to help you catch more fish and enjoy your fishing that little bit more.